When life looks okay but feels off, this is where we talk about it all. Hi, friends, and welcome to This Shit Can't Be It, where we have real, unfiltered conversations about rising through all the hard things, reclaiming your personal power. This is where you're here to be seen, to be heard, to get inspired, find tools for your own healing, growth, and evolution. You're in the right place. Hi, I'm your host, Anne, and today we're diving in Choosing Yourself, a journey of sacrifice to self worth. Today, my guest is Danie, and much of her life, she believed that she had to be nice in order to sacrifice her own well being. But everything changed, and she left an abusive relationship just 2 weeks before she was supposed to get married. And then she faced the heartbreak of her father disowning her and the entire family to follow suit shortly after. So Danie's story is raw, it's real, it's powerful, and she rose above it all. So welcome, Danie. Thank you so much for joining me today.
And thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited for this conversation.
Oh,
I love the premise of your podcast. I love the name. So I'm excited to get real and raw with you because this shit can't be real.
no, and it's your episode gives me goosebumps because we often talk about self-care and like you say, it comes across as being selfish, but that's a belief system that we have as individuals when we don't fully understand what self-care really means. And I love how you have gone through all of that and was able to rise above it all because at the end of the day, I say it, and sounds harsh sometimes, but family is your family, their blood. But I have witnessed myself that family isn't always blood. It's who comes into your life and how well they treat you and how well you mesh together. That's family. It doesn't always have to be blood. And sometimes you have to be able to cut the cord if it's super toxic. If you're not able to get yourself to a healthy place to accept them for who and what they are, you have to cut the cord and get yourself to a healthy place. Because after all, you're put on this earth for one lifetime in this physical vessel. And time is one thing we can't get back. So claim it, own it, and live your life is my motto. So
Hi,
let's
100%.
dive in. Yeah, let's dive
Yeah.
into what you had to go through because when I read your story, I was like, oh my Lord. I can relate. My family didn't disown me, but I almost got to a point where I disowned them. I didn't do
Mhm.
it, but I was close to it because I couldn't manage what was happening around me. And the only way I knew how to manage it was to cut the cord. And when I was getting ready to cut the cord, my dad specifically begged me not to do it because he was in a very toxic relationship that was overflowing, and I didn't know how to balance it. I was always trying to control everything outside of me. I did not understand back then that I can't control that. So sometimes we have to cut the cord in order to get ourselves healthy. I was lucky enough I didn't have to take that path, but you weren't given the choice. So walk
Mhm.
us through what life was like before all of this happened, how you were navigating before you became aware, because your awareness, it sounds like you were slapped in the face to become very aware of how things had to move forward.
100%. So it's interesting because, as you mentioned, I was in a very toxic relationship. It's a very abusive relationship, both mentally, physically, and emotionally. And, it took me a few years to be able to say that and to understand that it was an abusive relationship because I didn't think it was. I just thought it was a relationship based on what I had seen and experienced in my life and just the way things were, right? It's like, oh, this is just relationships, right? I didn't have a different, not that my father abused my mother in a physical way. I never witnessed that, but there was a lot of mental and emotional abuse that I, came to understand later on. And so going through that, just that journey alone was quite difficult because I was so scared to tell my family about the abuse for one, but that I didn't want to get married. And so much so that my mom, I told her, I was like, Mom, I don't think I want to do this. I don't think I'm ready. Even though we had been together for about 10 years at this point, or just about 10 years, it was like we were already living together. We had a house together. I mean, it appeared to everybody in the entire world that we had everything going on, that we were the perfect couple, like all of the things that you would think from the outside perspective. I had a good job. We had bought a house. We had the two dogs. Like we were getting married. Like it was, that perfect quote unquote scenario. I was early in my 30s. It's about 31. And so it was really like that's the time, I've done all these things and look where I'm at. And it felt as if I had everything going on for me, but still, I didn't understand I was depressed. I didn't understand that I was not living for myself. I didn't understand that I was that I had been conditioned. And here I am, about to make this decision of going forward in my life and to marry this person. And to me, that was a big commitment. That was a very big commitment that my parents are still together till this day. Although should they or should not be, that's another story. But I
Right.
was committed, I was going in committed, and I didn't want to do that. And so I told my mom, and my mom was like, you're just nervous. We all get nervous. We all get scared. It's a big, it was like this whole idea. And she said the words to me that I will never ever forget. And she said, well, you're going to have to tell your dad. My dad is the patriarch of the family. And so everything gets run by him. Every decision I ever made was run by my father. And so I'm like, the thing I didn't want to happen, it was more of like, Mom, can you go to bat for me? Can you do this? And she was like, no. And I think at that time I was so disappointed because I wanted my mom to just be my mom and help me through this, help me say that it's okay. I don't have to do this. What flipped on me was when my father actually called me, because my father my parents both, they lived in another state. And so it was a phone call, right? It wasn't, I could go stop by their house.
Yeah.
And he calls me. I'm in the middle of a store, Michael's Arts and Crafts. If those of you that know Michael's, I'm in Michael's. And I'm like, my dad's like, so your mother tells me that, you need to talk to me about something. And I said, yeah. Um, Scared, nervous, heart, right? Like, here we go. I'm going to have to prove. And I tell my dad, I'm like, I don't think I want to get married. And he says, okay, that's it. That's it. Like, no, he just said, okay. And I was like, my heart was like, what? Like, I thought in my head, my story was that my father was going to make me do this. And so I had spent a year building myself up to do this because I knew that I was going to have to, that he was going to make me. That was my thought. That was my story. And so when I got to that point and he said, it's okay, changed everything for me. And I'm like, oh, I don't have to go through with this. And he was like, no, he's like, I knew something was wrong. I could tell, you're not somebody who does certain things. I'm a very organized planner person, and I was not very organized or planned at the
Oh,
wedding at
wow. Yeah.
all. And so he knew. So he's like,
Yep.
I knew, Danie, don't worry, we'll take care of it. And I was like, okay. So that right there shifted things for me because for one, I had gotten out of a relationship that was not good for me, but I didn't know who I was. And my father had showed up for me in a very, very powerful way
Yeah.
in being that person that I was okay. It was okay. I didn't have to do this.
Yes.
Not realizing all the other toxic things that kind of went with it. But it was such a big moment for me to finally choose myself for the first time in my life. I was 31 years old and I finally said, this is my life. This is what I'm going to do. And
Yeah.
now take that next step.
And you know what? You bring up something that's so powerful. And I didn't realize it was even true for me because people see me as very independent. My mother went through an abusive relationship, so she raised me to never put up with it. And I was always considered, and people looking at me always seen me as an independent person. And I had no idea how much I relied on my parents' feedback before I made major decisions. Now, I did not require their approval, but I sought it indirectly without even realizing I was doing it
Yeah.
until my mom passed away. So
Oh,
when I went through that phase of needing to cut the family out, that was why, because she had passed away. The story we told ourselves is she's the glue that keeps the family together. So because we all said that story, we all fell apart. So instead of being this tight knit family, my brothers were going their way, I was going my way. My dad got caught up in a toxic relationship like 3 months after she passed. Got engaged to her like the first Christmas without her mother. He got engaged to her. Like I wanted to choke him. But looking
yeah.
back now, like I was so vile at that action from him, and it was so disrespectful in my mind, but I never considered his point of view in his shoes. Even though she was not the right person, it wouldn't have mattered at that time who he was with. It would have been wrong in my eyes, but reality is there is no right or wrong. That's his life. That's his choice.
Yeah.
But we as kids grieving our mother, we didn't see it that way. And
Yeah.
unfortunately for him, she was extremely toxic. So she was impacting him and influencing him in ways that normally wouldn't have been my father's typical way of behaving or reacting to things. She had a high influence over him. And because of her nature, she didn't allow him time to grieve. So he didn't realize
Mm.
until after she passed away, which was 16 years later, that
Oh,
he
wow.
that he had missed that grieving piece of our mother, and he realized how much he missed it. So he grieved her much later after this one passed away, because she ended up with cancer, unfortunately. But um,
Mm.
she ended up passing away. But in that 16 years they were together, the first 8 years, she destroyed every relationship he had, including mine with him. She instantly damaged the other relationship with my brother, and one brother was left. And dad warned her, if you mess with this relationship, you're gone. But the thing is, he still allowed it to happen to me and my other
The
brother.
others.
So
Yeah.
there was a level of guardedness that I had with him after that until I did my own healing journey. And I got to say, knowing what I know now, I had no clue of it back then. But knowing what I know now, if I had known it back then, it would have been very different, because I
Yeah.
now understand that he's never been a malicious man, never. But I treated it like it was malicious, even though the intent wasn't there. And
Right.
because of it, we now have a better relationship. I have a better relationship with him and my brothers than I've ever had in my entire life,
Love
because of
it.
my own growth and awareness of they're doing the best they can. I have to
Yep.
accept for who they are, where they are, and understand it's not malicious. They mean well. And because of that, I can let shit go now so much faster and not have any attachment to it. But the
Right.
seeking of his and mom's approval back then, and then my mom passing away, and then him disappearing, going down this
And
path with
his.
her, I was lost, like
Yeah.
absolutely lost. And I
Yeah.
remember sitting in one of my brother's houses, like bawling my eyes out, saying, I don't even know who I am anymore. And he's like,
Yeah.
Anne, you have to decide who you want to be now. He said, you have to pick and choose what values that you want to embrace and which ones you want to let go, because now it's your life. And I had no idea the impact of the advice that he gave back then, because, like you say, I was still caught up in my own
You're in
bullshit.
it. Mm-hmm.
So, yeah,
Absolutely.
you can't see the path because the forest is so overgrown. So, all you see is the
Absolutely.
branches right in front of you versus the path. So, it
Yeah.
took me, I was in my mid to late 40s before I really started to truly heal.
Wow.
And this happened, my mom passed away when I was 23. So that's how long it took me to
Wow.
navigate life
Navigate.
as I knew it, and go through multiple experiences to get me there. So
Yeah.
to all those listeners that are out there, if your parents are still alive and you think you're stuck listening to them and you're stuck needing their advice, you don't. You really don't. And
Yeah.
your life is your own decisions, and the path that you choose is what's going to make or break whether or not you live in passion or not. So walk
Yeah.
us through the next phase.
Yeah. Yeah. This is interesting. And I love what you said, because I think it's really important for us to understand that we sometimes get caught up in all of the things, right? But you said it very clearly. It's the expectations that we have of other people, but more so it's the idea of like, okay, this is who they are, and it's accepting them for who they are. And we sometimes are not able to do that because we have our own stories and beliefs, and I like to say lens of how our information is filtered, that we're seeing, like you said with your father, seeing things as malicious, right? You were not the point where you could see it differently. And so you have to step away. I say this all the time, like, you have to step away and be able to see clearly for yourself what is
Yeah.
actually going on within you, why you are making these stories up. And we don't think we're making stories up, but we actually are,
We are.
right? These
Yeah, I'm
stories
glad
that
you
you're,
clarified that.
yeah, yeah, we
It
are. We are
is.
100%. It's 100%
Yes.
a story. Everything is a story because it's a perspective on how we see the situation, where it might be. So I love that you said that, and I wanted to come back to it because I think it's so important that we have to take that step back so that we can be able to accept them from who they are, and build the relationship from that point. And I think that's the number one thing. And I would love to, and I'll get to it now, but I would love to be able to do that someday with my own father. I really do wish that that will come to a point before he does leave this earth, that we are able to do that. But let me tell you a little bit before why I believe that. So my father, I started on a very, after that kind of separation and starting my own life, it was very much of me understanding who I was. And I dove into the personal development realm. And I just said I had a year of yes after that year, and just really dove into saying yes to things because, as I mentioned, I didn't know what I liked. My decisions, everything had either been filtered from my father or filtered from my boyfriend. It was just everybody had kind of told me what to do, and I just kind of went along. I often say I was in the back seat of my life that entire time. And I wasn't even stepping into the driver's seat yet. I was like up maybe in the front, like on the passenger seat, like looking over at whoever was driving and noticing who was driving. I was still not really driving my life, but I was becoming aware of who was driving my life, what was driving my life. And so that year of yes taught me so much about what I like and what I didn't like. And so I continued on this journey of understanding myself and going to the different courses and seminars and conferences and taking all the things, right? Reading all the books and just starting to understand the beliefs that I had, the things that I was, the way I was framing things, the way I was seeing things, and the ideas that I had, right? I started to notice all that conditioning. And so I
Yeah.
got to a point with my love, and we had just come back from a family barbecue, and these family barbecues became very regular. So regular that it happened to be like pretty much every other weekend. And him and I at the time were starting a business, an online business, and so we were in the resale kind of idea, right? Like a eBay kind of idea. And so we were starting to get this business off and going, but I was constantly being pulled to go to family events, go to family functions, right? And so there was this constant pull. And one day we come back from this barbecue and he says, "Can I ask you a question?" And I was like, "Yeah, what's up?" And I'm like fixing the pillows on the couch, like organizing the house, thinking this is nothing. And he drops the biggest bomb on me ever. And it was, "Who are you?" And I was like, "I'm me. I'm Danie. What are you talking about?" Like, just kind of played it off because I didn't really grasp the depth of what he had just asked me. And I said, "What do you mean?" And he said, "You're one way with your parents, you're one way with me, and you're another way at work. Who are you?" It's like, wow. The fact that he was able to see this and
Yeah.
tell me was like, oh, okay. So then I had to go through this whole understanding of like, where do you see that? How do you see it? How am I different? Like, I thought I was being the same person across all of these different places, but he could see something different that I could not see. And so I had to at first is he just making up a story? Is this his story, or is this real? And so I went into this trying to understand even deeper of like, am I a different person? And how am I different? And how am I doing things? And so I started to do that. And I kind of pulled back a little bit. As I mentioned earlier, this is just pulling back that you have. Well, the family feels it. They feel you pulling back. And so my brother had invited us to a thing, and I said, you know what? I'm not going to make it. And that was like, wait, you're what? You're not coming? What do you mean you're not coming? Like we always come, right? And it was the first
Yeah.
time I said no. And my brother was like, oh, like not okay. My parents, like, what, not okay. So I had pulled back so much, and it was about 3 months or so that I was like, I need some space. And I told that to my brother. I didn't say anything to my parents. I just needed kind of some space to kind of explore some stuff to figure out what I thought. And so I went to a therapist, started doing some work around this. And I got to this point where I was like, okay, I think I'm good. I think I'm good. I think I'm ready to re-enter. And my father texts me and says, your brother just told me that you haven't talked to him in so many months and all this. He just starts going off. He's like, this cannot go on any longer. I'm going to call you tomorrow. Be ready.
Oh, wow.
It was as if he was in control of how I was to move in my relationships.
Hmm.
And so I said, okay, question mark. Right? Not sure. So I'm driving home from work that day. I'm Bluetooth on in my car. I'm stuck in traffic, in LA traffic. And my father says, what is going on? And I was like, well, at this point, I was very clear on what was going on what had happened, how I felt, and how I wanted to move forward. And the decision that my love and I had talked about was that he was no longer going to attend our family functions. I was still going to go on, but that was something that he didn't want to do because of the things that he was experiencing and going through on his own journey, right?
Hmm.
And so I tell my father this, and he says, no, that's not happening. And I was like, well, yes, father, it is. And he said, Danie, if you think that's okay, then I'm sorry, but that's not how we do things here. And don't come to my house ever again.
Oh, wow.
And I said, Dad, that's not what I'm asking. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that this is what's going to happen moving forward. And he said, I understand that. He said, if you think that this is okay, then you are not part of the family anymore. And that hearing my dad's voice through the Bluetooth speakers in my car tell me that I am no longer part of the family because I chose myself for the very first time to my family now, right? Because I'd chosen myself before, but now I had to choose myself in front of my family. And my father was like, yes. And that was it. That was it. It was just done. It was done. And so I was in a place of shock. I was in a place of sadness. I was in a place of anger because who were you to tell me, right, that I can't do something? I didn't realize that my father had had so much control over my life that when I had finally taken that step back to kind of analyze everything and get outside perspective, right? Somebody who did not know my family, did not know any of the attachments, any of the things, but could honestly be there to support me by myself
Right.
in my greatest and highest good totally helped me see what was actually happening. And so I had to move forward. As you said with your mom, I had to move forward now on my own. I no longer had my family. My mother, she as I bless her heart, she tried to continue, but it would never be the same because she chose my father. She didn't choose me. And I understand that and I accept that for what that
Yeah.
is. Her and I had a conversation probably about a month after this happened because there was going to be an intervention because clearly I was insane and they needed to come save me, right?
Yeah.
And I didn't let that happen. I didn't
Good
want
for
to be
you.
bombarded by a group of people telling me that I was wrong when I knew that I was right. So I did have a conversation with my mother, and my mother understood. She completely understood, and she said she knows how my father is, and so she we were able to have a really good conversation. And then she went home, and the whole idea of everything got distorted. And from that point on, my mother and I's relationship started to dwindle because I could
Yeah.
no longer trust my mom with information that was very personal to me. She wasn't able to handle that. And I respect that. As we talk
Yeah.
about who they are, she was
Yeah.
not that person. And I
No.
realized that right then and there that she was not that person. And
And she's
so
stuck in the middle.
she was very much stuck in the middle. She still is till this day. I mean, I love my mother too. I love both of my parents because I have done a
Yeah.
lot of healing around this. I understand why these decisions were made. I understand why they chose that um, you know, action. I understand it wholeheartedly. Do I love it? Absolutely not. Do I wish I could have my family in my life? Absolutely. But I also know I would not be the person that I am today had I not gone through that. One of the biggest things that I have learned about myself is that I can truly be on my own. I can truly not have to worry or not be connected to other people and still be okay. Like
Right.
that, my family was everything to me. And so for that to be swept out from under me by one word, one decision by one person,
Right.
completely changed my world. But I would not have explored the things I explored. I would not be able to understand the relationships with families. I would not be able to do the work that I do today in helping people mend their own relationships and see what's happening in the relationships if I had not gone through that myself. So,
Yeah.
it wasn't necessarily easy. I will definitely say it wasn't um but it was the best thing that I could have ever done. It's the like I thank my father now for making that decision for me because I know that I would never have been able to make that decision on my own at that time.
No. And like you say, it sucks that it is what it is right now. But the fact that you're now able to help other people because of it, it'll never make it easier, make it right. But it goes to show that the journey was meant to be. Like I had to learn a hard way that I can't control the outside world. Like it
No,
when I first heard that the only thing I can control is how I think, feel, and act, I was like, bullshit. Like that was my story, right? I was like, bullshit. But then when you go
yeah,
through stuff like this and you really start analyzing what's happening around you, and you start to realize that even your children, you can guide them, but you can never fully control them.
nope,
So you can't control anything outside of your own physical vessel. And what's within are your thoughts, your emotions, your feelings, and you get to control because of what's inside your outer actions. And that took me a very long time to wrap my head around because let alone learning that piece around my family and being able to let so much of it go because I can't control them. I can control me and how I respond to it and what it means to me.
yes,
And but then to apply it to going to work every day where you have a high stress, high demanding job with where you feel like everything is happening to you, not for you, and then
mhm,
try to apply it there. It's hard to apply it when you're in autopilot at a very busy, fast-paced environment
yep,
because that fast-paced environment doesn't allow you to slow down and analyze the pieces of how you can now integrate that information and that knowledge. And it was when work finally slowed down and I started making steps, I started doing things like internally in the office to help make me slow down.
yeah,
And but setting my own boundaries so the hustle didn't control me was
100,
huge because like you say, you can't control that outside. They're hired to do a job. Yes, you have to do your job, but at the same time, you're in control of this. So if I had to go to the bathroom instead of rushing my duties, took some time to sit on the toilet and breathe or stand in front of
hmm,
the mirror while I wash my hands for 2 minutes longer than I normally would,
right,
to just breathe was that in itself was changing. just little tiny pieces and steps, putting in the earbuds to drown out the noise
Yeah.
of the chaos and all the things that I can't control. So instead of having somebody else's bad attitude or bad reactions or whatever they had going on impact me, I was able to start applying what I was learning and thought, I can't control them. Don't know why they're flipping out. Something I did, then I need to take a step back. But I was able to start implementing this stuff. And
Yeah.
even my problem solving skills towards the latter part of my time there had shifted. We could have confrontations with each other and end it with a hug versus having this and having it
Yeah.
last for days. So that was part of my growth and part of my journey to being able to recognize that and apply it in everyday life. Because I was like you, I was doing all this work and applying it at home where it was nice, calm, and relaxed. And I
Yeah.
struggled to apply it at work where it was fast paced and busy. So I had to hire a coach to help me navigate
Yeah.
all of that and help me understand what I was not getting, what I was not understanding, to be able to shift and change and apply it to everyday life. So, yeah, that navigation has been huge. And I have yet to talk to anyone that hasn't required hiring somebody for additional help, whether it
Mhm.
be a coach or a mentor or somebody. Like, all the successful people in the world have hired people to help guide them to rise them above where they're at now. Because when you're stuck, you can't see the path. All
Mhm.
you see is the limbs that are overshadowing the path.
Yep.
And sometimes you need help to clear that pathway in order to be able to see clearly to make better and yes, you're going to make decisions that are not going to have the best outcome. There's laws of the universe we cannot argue with. Cause and effect, polarity, it's going to happen.
It's
End
gonna
of story.
happen.
And I always tell my child that, for everything you do, there's always an effect. Sometimes it's going to be good, sometimes it's going to be bad. But when it's bad, learn from it and take the good and run with it. But learn from the bad so you don't keep making those same mistakes like I did for 30 plus years of my adult life. like
Absolutely.
seriously, like it's a journey. There is no right and wrong. It's just the
No.
journey. And
Mhm.
it's going to be what we make it. And if it's not what we want it to be, then it's up to us to shift and change to make it what we want it to be.
I see it all the
So,
time to my clients. Like, it's not good or bad. Nothing that happens is
no,
good or bad. Like, my situation with my father was not good or bad. It just was.
right,
Now, I, at the time, probably had a perspective and a belief that it was bad, that it was
right.
horrible. Now I'm like, wow, it was such a blessing. I have such a different perspective, or I have such a different, like, my father got sick a couple years ago, and, we thought we might lose him. And, the way that that whole thing kind of played out, I had a lot of peace knowing that, like, I was at such peace with our relationship, whether externally it looked like anything was resolved. I had peace within myself about that
Mm,
relationship, that no matter what happens, like, I wish I will get the point to talk to him before he passes, but if I don't, I am okay. I am at
mm,
peace with that relationship from my side, right? They might have another story. They might think something differently. My family might have, they're going to have their story about it. But like you said, I can only control here. And that is the most important part. Like, we do the healing for ourselves, not for anybody else, but for ourselves. Does it impact others? Absolutely. Because then we can build those beautiful relationships with our family, with our friends. But it
yeah.
starts with the number one relationship that we have with ourselves.
And we have to protect this. Like it's,
Absolutely.
and as humans, we're not taught any of that. From birth onward, we're not taught any of that. We're not taught, you know, people that are selfish are not always even doing self-care. Like there's a huge difference. Like self-care is not
No,
selfish.
no.
Selfishness is a lack of self-care,
Yeah.
really,
Yeah.
because you're not taking care of this. You're thinking you are because and people see it as you're being selfish. It's all about you. But that's a protection mechanism. They're not even taking
100%.
care of themselves.
No.
So to be able to separate that and understand the difference between selfishness and self-care was massive, and a lot of people don't even look at it or even consider it. But I've dove into various types of coaching and training over the years, and recently I was diving into some Tony Robbins stuff, and he says it so
Mhm.
plainly. And I've heard other people say it, and he'll admit where he pulls his information from.
Yeah.
But you got to guard what goes in, because what goes in impacts everything internally. And
Yep.
then that in turn impacts what comes out. So like he says, garbage in, garbage out.
Yep.
And the belief systems, he's like, and he pulls this from, I think it's Katie Barron, but I always refer to him because I got it from him. um, our belief systems, you got to question, is it true? Like absolute truth.
Yes.
If you were to take it to a court of law, is all the facts going to tell you that yes, that belief system is true? And I recently heard somebody take that and take it to a different level of not just is it true, but when we're feeling low vibration, low energy, depression, exhaustion, all of it, what belief system is driving that? Because
Yeah.
it's all backed by a belief system. And
100%.
and that's part of where my coaching comes in, is I coach it on hyper awareness, because you can't change it unless you're hyper aware. Because how many times have you and I gone into a room and it's like, I came in here for something. So you had awareness, but it left like that. And you're
Hmm.
like, I don't even remember why I come in here. But that's awareness. But hyper awareness is almost like a shocking experience. So whether you were surprised with a trip that you're never going to forget, or an accident, something negative that happened, you always remember in great detail, no matter how old you
Yep.
were, every detail around it, what you were wearing, what you smelled, what you seen, the colors,
Yep.
day, night, like everything. Hyper vigilant on the details. So that's how I help people transition, is to become hyper aware and then challenge the belief system. Is it true? And is it
Mhm.
like 100% true? And is it possible that the
Yeah.
opposite or another frame, because the minute they say yes, then that no that belief system has just been shot all to hell.
Yep.
Literally. You just blew it up
Poking
yourself
a
because
hole.
you agreed that it is possible that this could be happening. And having that type of mindset, and like you say, becoming hyper aware of it all the time, and you start challenging it, you start to open up to different perspectives. So when somebody else is flipping their lid, you're like, wait a minute, what's going on in their world that's causing them to, did they just have a flat tire this morning that started their day spiraling, and they're
Yep.
unaware of the impact to shake it off, or no even know how to shake it off?
Yep.
And this is the result. Or are they just going through, like you say, a massive rebirth in their life of traumatic experiences that they're navigating, and
Hmm.
they're hyper? Because I know when I'm stressed, I'm quick to snap.
Yeah,
So it
absolutely.
allows that different perspective for you to then take things and look at them differently, from a whole different lens. And because of that, you're not as triggered by what's going on outside anymore.
Yeah. I
And
see
that
like
creates the peace and the calm.
100%. Like I think the reason I say this a lot is I part of my work is in within using breath work. And
Mm,
I say that I don't do breath work because I want to calm my nervous system, which is yes, I want to do that.
it does do that.
I it does absolutely do that. That's a bonus. I
Right.
actually do breath work so that I don't go off on the person at the grocery store who takes my parking spot.
Yeah.
Right? I don't go off when my love doesn't take out the trash and I expect that he would take out the trash or do the dishes or start dinner. That's why I do breath work so that I don't
Yeah.
get triggered, right? If we
Hmm.
want to use that word, by somebody else's actions.
Yes.
Because if I'm in that high stress state, it's very easy for me to get triggered, for any of the little tiny little things. But
Yeah.
as you said, hyper awareness. So I talk about the sacred spiral of healing, and the very first thing is awareness. We cannot start healing. We cannot start working through something unless we realized there's something off, something's not
Yes.
working. We so hypervigilance has to be present in that sense of, oh, okay, wow,
You
something
can't
is
shift it
off.
otherwise. Yeah.
100%. I believe that there has to be some sort of understanding as to why or what this is connected to. What might it
Right.
be connected to? Is this a childhood thing? Is this a belief that I grew up with? Is this because somebody told me this? Like, what is that attached to? I think there's a level of understanding that needs to be had. And then the third one, which a lot of people miss, is that forgiveness piece.
Mm,
Forgiveness not only of the other person, if there was somebody else involved, but more so of self, forgiving
yep.
self for whatever that was, right? When I look back at the situation with my father, I had to forgive my father for doing what he did, right? And also forgive myself for there were things that I did that I can totally understand why my father did what he did.
Yep.
You know,
And gratitude.
I had to
Yep.
accept my piece of that, my piece of, I didn't tell my parents about my abusive relationship. I didn't tell them that. So of course they wouldn't understand certain things that I might do or not do. I didn't tell them that, hey, I need to take a step back because things are getting really weird and I'm working through some things. I didn't tell them any of that. So of course they're going to respond in this way. Like I can say, wow, Danie, I forgive myself for not doing that, right?
Yeah.
Because I made a choice that I thought was right at the time. It's what I knew at the time. I know differently now. I might do it differently now, but at the time, that's how I did it.
Yeah.
And
You
then the
did the
final
best you
stage
could
is
with what you had.
absolutely. And the final stage of that is to decide to move forward and how you now choose to move forward because we can easily get stuck in that spiral of, oh, this happened and this and it's this and it's this. But there's a point. People ask me this all the time, like, Danie, how do I move forward? I was like, you just decide.
Right. When I heard how powerful that simple for like that simple word is, decision, and just it's done, takes away all the negotiation, not just with yourself, which is the worst person you negotiate with, but
Yep.
everyone else involved.
Yep.
Because when you decide and you're absolute, no one messes with that. It's done. And it's that decision. And I missed that piece for quite some time. And it wasn't until I realized that the decision, because I mean, people seen me as a strong, powerful being,
Mhm.
and they thought they seen, like you say, the outside illusion was, that powerful personality that but I wasn't that decision maker. But it was in learning that hyper awareness, forgiveness, gratitude allows forgiveness to happen. So in the
Absolutely.
gratitude, the forgiveness, the growth, and in the growth, like you say, when the decision comes and it's absolute, not a wishy, not I
Nope.
might do this or I could do it. It's no, it's done. We're done. And when that happens, nobody messes with it because your energy radiates. Don't fuck with me. This is done. And that's where this podcast came from. Like, this shit can't be it. I used to say it all the time. And when
Yeah.
somebody said to me, like, podcasting was beating at my door for so long, and I kept ignoring it because I thought it was going to take too much time. And it wasn't until I did it, like you say, a ton of my own healing that I realized, like, people keep saying, bring value, bring value, bring value. And I'm like, how? And it's like, this is how. This is how. Not only is it free to sit in and listen, but the power of the information, the strategies, the stories of what we've gone through and who we are relating to, and we don't even know, and
No.
we don't need to know.
No.
But if it can impact you and we can help you navigate, that's all this was meant to happen,
Yep.
is to help all of that come to fruition. But to say this shit can't be it, well, decide and it won't be it. And that power, when you said it, I was like, yes. The power in that decision, the power in the yes without, like, absolution is the key to that decision. And it's done. And the universe will provide because your energy reflects that. It then
100%.
radiates out. And
Yeah.
all of these pieces is what I was missing for so, so long. And I
Yeah.
had no idea. It was
Same.
crazy.
I would
Crazy.
100% agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, if it wasn't for the decision that I made after my father made his decision, right, to say, okay, and what the hell am I going to do? Like, I remember that day because I knew I was going to have that conversation. I went to my love and I was like, here's what I need. And that was something I could never have done prior to that. I could never have told him, here's what I need. That was
Mm,
something that I had worked on in those 3 months of knowing what is it that I needed? What is it that I'm going to do? And I told him, here's what I need. And he was like, I'm like, can you do this for me? And he was like, because I knew I was going into battle, right? And he was like,
yeah,
absolutely. I'm like, okay.
yeah,
And that, right, that was a decision that I made. It was a decision
yeah,
that I made, that I know what's going to happen. I know what's coming. And if this gets crazy, I need to know that you're there for me. And
yeah,
he's still here.
yeah.
Thank God.
But that's how you know who your people are.
That is very
Because
much
it's
so.
in the people will avoid the mud, and I've been guilty of it. Like
Yep.
I've drifted from friends because I didn't know how to navigate, or
Yeah.
what they were going through scared me because it was a piece of my unhealed self that scared the shit out of me.
Yeah.
I have a close friend back east. I love her to death to this day, but we drifted because what she started navigating was one of my biggest fears, because I watched my mom go through it, was the
Mm,
depression. And when she started navigating depression, I didn't know how to help her. I didn't know how to be there for her. And I
yeah.
didn't want to make it worse. So I drifted because I didn't know how to do any of that. And how
Yeah.
that was perceived by her, I don't know. But I mean,
Yeah.
we still talk and connect to this day. But I stepped back. I couldn't help her navigate that because that was unhealthy in me. I didn't even know my mother was on antidepressants till 6 months before she
Mm,
died.
wow.
And yeah, like she was on a lot of medications. And,
Wow.
they that scared the crap out of me. Like honestly, scared the shit right out of me. So when I started to navigate her death, I refused to go on antidepressants. I did everything I could to mask the depression.
Yeah.
So, I joke about it now, but I have a laugh for every situation. And if you know me well, you can pinpoint what laugh is what. You can tell when you need to get the fuck out because I'm about to blow, or this is funny, or it's sarcastic, or it's like I'm at the end of my rope. Like you can tell the different laughs of
Yeah.
what, or the giggles, I should say. You can tell all the different giggles and what personality is actually giggling. Because it's true.
Yeah.
That was my coping mechanism, was the giggling. And
Yeah.
people who don't know me would say, "Oh, you're so happy go lucky." I'm like, yeah, I am.
If
There's the
you only knew.
there's the sarcastic giggle. If only you knew. But
Right.
it's true, and it's like who your tribe is when when shit's about to hit the fan and they're still there. And
Yeah. I,
understanding the ones that have to drift may not be able to handle that situation because of their own trauma. And it's not that they're
yes.
abandoning you, they're just abandoning the
Yes.
situation because they don't know how to cope.
And that's, I think, where I think that's such a good point, because I think in adult relationships, like there's a lot around adult relationships, right, that they're hard. And I actually don't believe that. I'm very much against that idea that they're not hard. I just think
They're
if we're
fluid.
open and honest, that is the best thing we can do in adult relationships, when we can be conscious and aware of like, ooh, what you're going through is actually triggering me and I need to step away for a while. And
Yeah.
that friend, knowing that and being aware of like, okay, this person cannot help me, and not holding that against them.
Mm,
I think
yeah.
that's the part where people say that adult relationships are hard. And I don't think
Yeah.
it's just hard. I just think it's us being aware of what's actually transpiring, for us to be like, yep, I'm getting triggered by this. Or like you said, I don't know how to handle this. Like, I don't know how to help you. Sometimes
Mm,
we don't know how to help. And so we pull away because we don't, like, I'm not the person to help you, and
yeah.
I understand this.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna step back so that the people who
Yeah.
are there that can help you can step forward. And I think sometimes that gets misconstrued and
Hmm.
saying like, well, you weren't there for me. And
Yeah.
that's not actually what it is. And
No,
and I think if
it's
we can
fear.
have converse, yeah,
Yes.
100%.
It's the fear of making it worse for them is what drove
Yes.
people away. And when you
Yep.
understand that they pulled away out of your own safety and not wanting to make it worse, it gives a whole different level of perspective.
Whole different level.
And
I
like you
love
say,
it.
it may not be right or wrong, but it
No.
just is what it is for them because they're not healed. And that's what's happening. Like you say, they're triggered. So how can they're not going to heal overnight. They don't
Nope.
even recognize they're triggered really. Like back when that happened with me and my friend, I had no idea it was a trigger. I
Yeah.
can recognize it and label it now,
Now. Yeah.
but back then, no, no.
Mm-mm.
And
No.
I'll be honest, like I still struggle with people that are battling severe depression because I don't fully understand it. I can help understand where it started and how it stemmed from, but if you're deep in it,
Yeah.
it's you need a professional to pull yourself out of that. That's not a coach's
Yeah.
job.
And
Like
I think you
there's
you spoke to that earlier, Anne, where you said like every single person that you've talked to that has gone through different things that and successful people, we all know this, they all have coaches and mentors, right? They're all working with other people so that they can help them see what they cannot see.
mm,
And we go to people who are experts in certain things, right? We don't just go to
yeah,
a general doctor when we're dealing with something particular with our bodies, right? We go to particular, I have to go see a foot doctor, a specific doctor, a podiatrist
yes,
who's going to help me with my feet. I'm not going to a general, right? A
no,
general practitioner. I'm going to somebody specific. And so that's why it's so important that you find the person, whoever that might be, that is good at that thing that they do so that
yeah,
they can help you move through it for sure.
100%, 100%. So this has all led you to your business. So let's dive into what it is that your business is and what it
Yeah.
is you do. Because like I said, you do podcasting as well. So
I
what is
do.
it your business is and who is it you ideally target when it comes to your business and how do you help?
Yeah, it was interesting that I had a client tell me just yesterday, as a matter of fact. She said, you know what, Danie, I was talking to my friend and I said, I don't know what it is, but I have made so much bigger moves in my business, and we don't even talk about business. And that is it. That is it right there because I would say that most of the time women that come to me are women who are frustrated in something in their relationships, who have tried to do something and make moves going forward, whether it is in their business, and they simply can't. They feel stuck in it. And it might be the fear, it might
Yeah,
be, some old conditioning, and they're self-aware enough to know that there is something blocking them, there is something
yes,
stopping them, and they don't know how to move through it. And so they're looking for somebody who is an expert in helping them move through that. And that's where I come in. I call myself an inner work alchemist just simply because we do the inner work. And we
yes,
are not only doing the mindset work. This is something that I know we all start with. We all start with mindset, right? Because that's the
it's not
first
enough.
level of
Yeah,
awareness, but it 100% is not enough. We have to go beyond the mindset. And so
yeah,
the stuff like breath work, somatic healing, right?
yeah,
That starts, where is it in our body? How are we feeling this, right? Where is
physiology.
this here? The physiology of it. And then also, because I am in the woo woo world, it's looking at where is this attached on the soul level? Like, where is this connected? And to be able to do that deeper healing, whether it is in a past life, where it is in karma, where it is in, right, some other realm that we need to bring this into the here and the now. So I'm so blessed and honored to be able to work with ladies to help them do that inner deep soul work when they're ready, because not everybody's ready to go deep and to do that deeper work. So when they're ready to go in and really, unblock the stuff that has been keeping them from being their authentic self. That's where the movement starts to happen. And they are able to
Yeah,
navigate the relationships with their families, the relationships with their partners, with their children. There's a lot of healing that we do
yeah,
with the children and even the adult children, right? And then, of course, because they freed up all this energy, they're
yeah,
able to start making moves in their business. They're able to start showing up in their business. And that is my favorite thing to do because I
mm,
know that we all have a mission, we all have a purpose, and I want to make sure that every single person is able to complete that mission, is able to complete their
yes,
soul's mission, whether that is in a business or in their life. I am here to help you do that. And that's
yes,
what I want to do. That's who I want to be because I know I got stuck somewhere and I was luckily able to come out of it. And I just want to be that for somebody now.
yeah, yeah. That's powerful. That's awesome. Yes, and it boils down, like, as you're talking, I'm like, "Oh my God," like, I'm having my own realization that
I
literally
love
every
it.
coach out there, whether it be yourself, myself, or anybody that I bring in here that's in the coaching world, we all hammer the belief systems of Is it true? Is it not true? And releasing to make, because like you say, when you're stressed and exhausted, your cup is full.
Yep.
You're overflowing with the shit that you can't handle. And
Yep.
it boils down to trying to control everything that you can't control. Because when you release that, it then empties that cup and opens it up for the good stuff to come in. And like you
Yep.
say, your career changes, your business changes, everything is impacted.
Everything
Your
changes.
relationships, it all shifts. But it all comes back to the belief systems and the habits. Like however you want to break it down or however the modality is, whether it's your modality hitting at the soul level and the connections and cutting those cords, or if it's
Mm-hmm.
someone else. Like I was shocked when I dove into Tony Robbins training. I didn't know how I would perceive it because he's so well known. You have this perception of him
Yeah.
and you've gotten like tidbits, and my jaw dropped when I heard him say that life and business is a spiritual business. Like my
Yep.
jaw dropped because you
100%.
wouldn't, when you see him in clips or when you see him
Yeah.
doing his thing, he's so practical about it that you don't see him as a spiritual being, but yet
Mhm.
he's very spiritual, and his
Very
wife is
spiritual.
like very soulful. Like she is,
Absolutely.
her energy just radiates. It's crazy. So I was stunned at how much I really did connect with him because of the way he is, because he does have that I the energy. I don't even know how to word it. It's a vibrating energy that he radiates. So yes, he can bring all the skills and strategies, but
Yep.
he hits you at a soul level first in order for it to stick and impact. And
Yep.
he's learned human psychology. Like he's not gone to university,
Yep.
but he's probably better well diversed in the psychology world than anybody out there trained in the medical field because he's
100%.
read more, done more, practiced it more, and watched results. Like he can get results that other people will spend years with therapists and not having
Yep.
breakthroughs, and he'll have breakthroughs like that because
Yep.
he's looked at the science behind it and the impact
Mhm.
behind it, where they've just been trained to do a strategy and that's all they do. So it's very impactful, this whole industry. Now, I always say us coaches are not there's a time and place for medical, but that's one
Absolutely.
thing I noticed is that the medical field, because of how they're structured, wasn't helping me. I didn't have the deep seated depression that I had to get out of. I didn't have that deep seated um, area that required medical attention. And I knew that. And I knew the therapists were not helping me in my situation, that I needed to look at coaching and I needed to get help from a different method, a different avenue, a
Yep.
different modality. And that's the bulk of society. Some people require the medical stuff. And I always tell people when anybody's working with me, if at any time you don't agree with what I'm saying, that's your right. You
Yep.
have the right to not have to agree. But if
Yep.
any time you think you need medical help, go get it because I'm not that medical professional.
Yep.
I'm not that medical professional. So, navigate what's best for you at the end of the day. And I'm not for everybody. So it's important for me to have people like yourself come on this podcast
Yeah.
because I want to be able to help people. I want to be able to help the masses. I want them to be able to get out of that high stress, anxiety, chaos, whatever that looks like for you. It's not normal. We treat it as normal. It's
Yep.
not normal. It's not
It's not.
okay. It will lead you to
Nope.
disease. It will
Yep.
lead you down a path that's not healthy, and it will limit your time on this earth. So it's not normal. So find someone that you do relate to and connect with and start working with them because life is too short to continue to wait. You
Mhm.
know, Tony says, what are you waiting for? A better day, a better time, more money. It's
Yeah.
not coming unless you
Yep.
change. Nothing's
Yep.
going to change until you do.
Yep.
So thank you so much for joining me today. If anybody wants to connect with Danie, I've got all her information down below in the description. Go through it, connect with her. If you have questions for me, I'm always here, but definitely connect with her and find out. She's absolutely amazing. I'm so happy she's here with me today. I was so excited for this call because what you've gone through, I've not had a lot of people on the show yet that has experienced that type of trauma, so to speak. It is trauma. Like
It is. Yeah.
and you've got to navigate through it. And it's important that people know and understand and can relate because You're not the only one. I'm not the only one. And we're here to
No.
support each other. So get in the description, connect with Danie, and we'll talk to you soon. Take care, everyone. Thank you so much, Danie, for coming.
Thank you, Anne.
Take care. Bye bye.